Well, you know, I was asked to come in and sit in the chair, and when I sat down in the chair, it's pretty much like it popped. You know exactly who it was, and it pretty much he communicated. You know, a lot of times you hear people come in and they kind of force the energy, and you know, I don't ever really force anything, because if you kind of grab it and pull something in, you might grab something you don't want. So I kind of let it flow. And as soon as I sat down, it was like bam, he wanted to talk, and we found out that the grandfather was a member of a fraternity, certain fraternity. He had some ties to several other organizations that maybe not have been well thought of, and he really didn't see. He kind of just felt everything about the gentleman, who he was and his point, and his presence was known a lot more than it was let on before we ever come in. And that happens, to be honest, about 90% of the time when we come in and do the cases and talk. After we get going and they come along with us, we uncover a lot of the real truth to the case. The great-grandfather, the grandfather, actually got his point across and said what he wanted to say, and that was pretty much it. And he was pretty much a firm fellow anyway. And that's something I think we communicated with him, with Judd then, is that gentleman was a firm guy, and it was pretty much his way on a lot of things, and that's the way it was. And one of the things too, when I do what I do, if you don't cut it off, you bring them home with you, bring that residual home with you, and that's why it's so important to try to cut it off and let these things go. And as you talk about it, it kind of comes back alive in your energy as you talk. So I'm starting to relive the whole aspect. And I remember sitting in the chair, and it was a big wooden chair. You know, it was almost like it was stained. You know, it was carved out. It was pretty much anybody that's seen a Worshipful Master's chair in a Masonic Lodge, that's pretty much exactly what it was. But some of the carvings on it was a little bit different. And when you sit in it, you had that same empowerment of energy, and that's pretty much how that gentleman saw himself, the grandfather. Even now in this world, and a lot of things people don't realize is that in this world, when you cross over, you carry the same mind frame in who you are. You're that same person if you stay on that plane, and you carry it with you on and on. And he's one of the guys that pretty much wanted to constantly show off who he was, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one that was actually putting the things in the middle of the floor trying to get their attention.
We've had Helen's Place since March of '07, and we've seen a lot of stuff, hear a lot of stuff. I personally have seen a female child, a teenage girl, an older man. We've had employees that have seen the girls, a lot of guests that come in and see the different things going on. We've had stuff moved around until my wife got on to them, then they quit moving that. But just odd things going on. One night, my niece was here with us, and we were in the banquet room watching TV, and in our buffet room, a tumbler fell off the rack or whatever, bounced on the floor, so we went running in there. No reason for the tumbler to fall off the shelf, and my wife picks it up, you know, so we go back in there, we're watching TV, and then we hear a whole stack of them fall, which really no reason for a stack of glasses to fall off the shelf. We went in there, nothing. There was not any glasses on the floor, but you could hear them bouncing and everything. I mean, you could tell that a stack had fallen, but when we got in there was nothing. It was just like it was before. We had whatnots on the shelf my wife would decorate with or whatever, and she'd put them a certain way, come in the next morning, they'd be moved.
Tammy will actually take like one of them, lay it down, just kind of, it's not as a trick for her, it's just a decorator sense that she likes, and she can come back in here and it'll be standing back up.
A man committed suicide across the street with a shotgun.
He was locked in a garage, and the police couldn't get him out, and this would have been in the early 50s, so they called the city to come down there with some bolt cutters. So my dad was trying to cut the lock. Him and my grandfather were trying to cut the lock to get in. They couldn't. The guy stuck a shotgun under his neck and killed himself. And I've heard my dad through the years tell me that late at night there's been strange things going on around downtown. And in my profession, I've been out late at night a lot, and I've seen some weird things go on in this downtown area. The guy that I've seen, the same one that he's seen, that guy was killed in a car wreck, supposedly, at the end of the street. It was always questionable what made him hit the tree. So, because I do know from talking to other people that would have knowledge of it, there was damage to the rear of his vehicle, stuff like that. Consistent with being pushed.
Yes.
Stuff like that. And that's not the first time I've seen somebody dressed like that, strolling up and down 2nd Avenue South.
When it comes down to the gentleman outside, you know, I'm a firm believer that it comes to the two different guys in the front and backyard. The guy in the front yard, the gentleman that's reported that got killed in an automobile accident up the road. The guy in the backyard is connected to the guy that actually committed suicide out back in the shed that was formerly there. The little girls and stuff, they really can't get a point of where they come in and where they belong, but there's a lot of different stories and different theories out there. But I think it's a little bit of everything, and in some of the presences inside, you know, one of my belief systems, some of the things I felt, it actually is connected to some of his generational folks with some of the heirlooms they had inside the house and where they had things sitting.
What are the tools of the trade?
Wow, you know, when I first got started in this is what we used to use, and a lot of people laugh at it. All we had was a Boy Scout compass. We had a Polaroid camera, a notebook pad, and we used to make dowsing rods out of clothes hangers, and you know, and that's pretty much what we had when we got started. And now when we've come up, we use DVRs, cameras, we use EMF detectors.
Now, what? Explain that.
It picks up pretty much the electromagnetic field, and pretty much that's from the wiring in the walls, and pretty much you get a feel of the environment. And the theories out there is that, you know, earthbound spirits and ghosts can fluctuate the activity. You know, that's one of the theories I kind of support, and that's what I've witnessed it before where it's kind of grown. And also we have different thermometers and temperature gauges, because another theory out there is that spirits actually can lower, and we've had occurrences where it actually raised the temperature, and that's part of the investigation. We still use a lot of notebook pads, a lot of basically just absolutely documenting. We use voice recorders, digital voice recorders, and try to capture EVPs, and that's one of my favorite type of evidence.
You mentioned that term a minute ago, electronic voice
Phenomena.
Yes,
ma'am.
What would you expect to hear as a result of that?
Well, a lot of times we try to, what happens is we ask questions. Does anybody here like to communicate with us? Who is it? And you try to get a response back, an answer, or maybe who it is, and they reply to a lot of your questions. And to me, that's something that really validates a lot of the activity that we get. So that's one of the things we look for. We have different grades too. You run them through programs, and you try to grade them from A, B, or C. And anything below C, we normally just disregard it. And one of the important things is actually documenting every aspect of the investigation, where everybody's at, what's going on, so you can rule out anything. And that's really important part of the investigation.
So this electronic voice transmission, what have you heard it say?
Wow, you know, we've captured tons of different ones, and some of the ones captured, you know, one of my favorite ones was in New Orleans. We captured a little girl, and we actually investigated the old 1891 house, and that's over in the Garden District. And you know, it's really cool to me a lot of the reports and stories, and you actually capture evidence kind of supports the story. And one of the stories of the little girl that drowned in a well, and she was seen in several of the homes. And that's a lot of the things that people don't realize, is that a lot of times a ghost can be seen, and they're not always enclosed in one environment. They can move around. The little girl's been seen in several homes. And we actually captured the EVP upstairs. We actually got some video of a door closing right before we captured the EVP, and that's some of the things we look for.
What did she say?
If she was just singing, just absolutely singing a song. And normally when you catch something like singing, I would a lot of times kind of mark it up as residual. But with the door closing, it kind of changes the environment a little bit of being an earthbound spirit.
You use the term residual energy. What does that mean?
Well, you know, it's an imprint of history. You know, a lot of times in battlefields and any type of emotion, a death, a birth, it's just imprints history, and it's pretty much a photo of energy. And a lot of times when you have reports, you might have moon phases, thunderstorms, a lot of things kind of can charge it, and they'll kind of fire it off. A lot of times you hear reports of stories. I saw someone walk down a hallway and walk through a wall, and when you pull the paperwork and look at the way the home was drew up, there was probably once with a door there. And that's a lot of the residual things where the entity does the same thing over and over, just keep replaying in history.
Speaking of residual energy, I interviewed the ranger at Horseshoe Bend one year and asked him about the ghost of the battlefield, and he said indeed he could feel that presence, that heaviness. Have you ever experienced that on a battlefield?
Yeah, you know, some of the investigation techniques in the battlefield and some of the things we've done before is played recordings of old drum marches. Also, you can line your investigators up and do different marching formations and try a lot of things like that to fire off the residual. a lot of the replay. And, you know, you're talking about feeling that heaviness or feeling, you know, one of the things that I've always been taught, and a lot of times when you're doing an investigation or you're in a creepy place and you feel the tingling on the back of your neck and you feel it, you start singing a song, start whistling, and you break the vibration. That's where whistling in the graveyard comes from. You break the vibrations of the entity and that feeling.
The entities that you've experienced, do you experience positive energy or negative energy or both?
You know, we actually do both. Our team, we do a lot of historical sites and do a lot of things like that. We also do a lot of private homes. So we pretty much deal with a little bit of everything in this field.
Let's go over some of the places in our coverage area that you've been.
Okay.
Fort Morgan, what did you find there?
Well, you know, we've actually had a chance to investigate Fort Morgan twice. The first time we investigated it, you know, I really love history, and I was really disappointed because we didn't have anything. But, you know, we knew there was something there. But we had a good time. Some of our guys had some personal experiences, but that's all we had. And we had an opportunity to go back, actually about a month ago, and we did an investigation, and it was a little bit different. We had some personal experiences, and we actually captured, to me, one of my favorite video evidence that we've captured. And it actually looks like somebody's walking past our camera, and it's almost like a mist that walks past.
Anybody out here? Hello?